This is Cutting Down the Nets Elite 8 edition. Had a pretty good Sweet 16, so we will be moving on to the Elite 8. So picks coming up for the Elite 8 after some early morning handicapping on a Monday. Some notes on efficiency. I noted this after the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament. Adjusted efficiencies. They are getting better, but they were shown early in this tournament that the way the season went, we were behind the eight ball. Ken Pom, Bart Torvik, I use their data, so myself. And the reasons for that is non-con schedules were pretty light. So you had a smaller than usual sample size to determine kind of who's good. And then once conference teams start playing each other, those mistakes can get amplified. So we're seeing a correction in the market on adjusted efficiencies. It will get better as time goes. We're running out of games here. But it gives me long-term, I'm bullish long-term on this. I mean, it was just a weird year. For example, Washington has not played since March 10th, the Huskies. And they've moved up 43 spots in Ken Pom's rankings since the tournament started. Reason for that? When your opponents that you have play well after you've played them or before you play them, what you did against them is more reward. If you had a bad game, it's not viewed as bad. If you had a good game, it's viewed like, wow, you did really good because these teams are good. Like just as an example, if like Coastal Carolina played Gonzaga today and it was a close game, anyone that played Coastal Carolina this year on their schedule would have their profile lifted up by that performance. Not much. Certainly what you do in games is more impactful, but these things matter and they add up because opponents, it really adds up. Another thought that I'm not smart enough to figure out, but my thesis is once you have a team's profile, that's kind of used for the year, okay? Like Michigan is Michigan, Texas Tech is Texas Tech, Baylor's Baylor, And what we saw this year, more than any other year, is that these teams had different profiles in and out of, these COVID breaks. So if you caught a team before they went on a COVID pause, and at the time they were very strong, and that's just where they landed on your schedule, I mean, that's a pretty true result. Now, if you catch that team right after a COVID break, you're going to get evaluated the same as a team that caught them before when they were playing better, instead of this rusty team that is lacking conditioning, practicing, all that sort of stuff. So we can't wait that. It was quantified this year as you come out of COVID, you come out of a break, it's probably worth somewhere between 2 and 4 points, depending on how long your pause was. But from an adjusted efficiency standpoint, we're not saying, oh, what you did against Michigan was after their COVID pause, so we're not going to reward you as much, where this team was before. So it's just something to note. I'm so looking forward to a GD normal year where there's no back-to-backs, there's no COVID pauses, and there's a good non-con schedule. Just give me a regular year. I'm looking forward to it. But I digress. That's enough of this crap. Let's get on with the program, and we'll start with a brief recap of the Sweet 16. So we have Patty's median projection, which you saw in the last show, the Vegas lines, and then this was the estimated cover percentage based on the line that I locked in. So we went 5-3 if you played Patty straight up, and if you just stuck to above 55%, you're 3-1. If you stuck to above 60%, you played one game, and it was Oregon State. But a couple notes on these teams. So we highlighted ways teams can outperform their median, and then risks associated with each team, like things that could happen that would force them to perform below their median. Loyola, we highlighted their offensive efficiency as a risk. They would score just enough. And in a low possession game, and we had 60 possessions against Oregon State, if you fall behind, you're going to need like 8 stops in a row. I mean, being down 6 points in a game like that is dangerous, especially when you're laying 7. So Oregon State's been running good. Loyola had the looks. They aren't a great offensive team. This isn't just Oregon State luck. And overall, the Beavers got it done. I did not think they would necessarily win that game, but I thought it would be much closer than the 7. Whiffed on Florida State, Michigan. I don't know. You can claim conspiracy or whatever, as Florida State was whistled for like 24 fouls, and I think Michigan had 1 or 2. I might be off on that data. I haven't looked at that 100%. But Michigan got 34 looks at the rim, and that is egregious on Florida State's defense. I did not see that coming. I thought Florida State could prevent the post-up game, which kind of did. But overall, I mean, if you're going to give a team 34 looks at the rim, in which Michigan, I think they made 23, 25, something like that. So not good. UCLA, Bama. However you look at this game, you probably had a bad beat. I mean, really. Bama's free throw shooting was atrocious. Ugly. I had a Bama second half. Man, that charge with 15 seconds left, that wasn't called on Tiger Campbell as he dumped it off to Cody Riley, was one of the things that went wrong for Bama's second half. The other was free throws, 30-foot three-pointer at the buzzer of regulation, just so many things. That was a tough pill to swallow on Bama's second half. Give UCLA credit, though. In an 80-possession game against Alabama, they had 8 turnovers. That's obscene ball control. Houston Q's. Houston did not kill Q's on the glass like we expected. Man, Boeheim just struggles with personnel, I think. If Edwards played the whole game in the middle of that zone, probably could have caused a little more problems on Houston. He did recognize it, got him in more. But overall, Houston had a good game plan. They were patient. They worked it. You could tell when they didn't work it, which is what happens when Sasser touches the ball. But Grimes and Giroux really forced it. But the story of the game was Giroux in Boeheim's pants. I've been there as a high school basketball player. That's not very good. And when a guy is just locked in on you, man, it's just frustrating. And Giroux was in Boeheim's head. He was in his pants. And it was a tremendous defensive performance. So Giroux came in really banged up. Had he, had to miss more time like he did the first 2 rounds, that game probably goes different. Although they would have put Mark or Grimes on him. But either way, that was 100% on Giroux for Houston getting that cover. Oregon, USC. USC shot lights out, but I mean, that's what they've been doing. I don't know. Oregon didn't make a shot. That was a frustrating game because I didn't really care who won, but I don't know. If Taji Eady beat you, fine. Isaiah White beat you? Come on. That's just gross. So overall, USC shot 69% at the rim and 3-point. They shot 26% in the mid-range, but Oregon could not force any mid-range work there. Baylor went 3-19 from 3 in a 57-possession game and still won by double digits. But something to note, Nova went 3 for 17. So Jay Wright did slow the game down considerably, which I thought was the only path there, and it worked as long as it could, and eventually time caught up with Villanova. Arkansas continued their offense of throw some shit at the rim and then rebound it versus getting to the rack against Oral Roberts. Ultimately, they held on. A. Smith's shot was so close, but Arkansas is a decent team. They're going to have to figure it out real quick. And then Gonzaga, man, 70-plus possession game, so Creighton did not slow that down enough, although I just don't know if you can slow down Gonzaga. But Gonzaga absolutely shot the lights out, which there's no chance you're going to beat Gonzaga on a hot night. Creighton took 33% of their attempts from three. We're on the season. They're at 44%. Don't know if Gonzaga just kept them off the line, but that could not have been the game plan. I mean, you've got to increase some variance against Gonzaga if you're going to beat them. So overall, cover percent estimate. If we are over 60%, we went 1-0. That was the Oregon State game. The ones over 55%, 3-1. And overall, a 5-3 performance. Couple easy wins, couple big losses, and a couple that could have went either way. In my experience, basically the second round, Sweet 16, Elite 8, if you fill out a card and say, okay, I'm going to bet Oregon State, Houston, Baylor, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you get that. If you wrote down the opposite, you would feel just as safe with that. It is so hard to bet these games when typically both teams are good, are playing well, and I think the story is the same with the Elite Eight. So let's get to it. Overall, pretty good Sweet 16. I probably ended up with 20 bets when it was all said and done with live betting, first halves, over-unders, and had a pretty profitable weekend. So game one of the Elite Eight is Houston against the Beaver. Vegas has this as Houston -7. Our beloved Patty has set the line at 5.6. You see the estimated cover percentages there. There's not a ton of value, but certainly the side I'm leaning is Oregon State. So let's talk Houston. What would happen for Houston to outperform their 5.6? I think there's an edge on the glass, and Houston did not exploit it enough against Syracuse, but I think they could against Oregon State. There is a little leak there on the Beavers rebounding. Ways Houston could perform below their expectation, meaning this game's even closer than 5.6 or they lose outright, is just continuing to settle for the mid-range jumper. There's a lot of talk about Oregon State's shooting luck. Teams are shooting 26% from three, long twos, that sort of thing. Well, guess what? Those are awful shots. So props to Oregon State for forcing you into awful shots. And if you're going to take them, don't complain about missing them, because if I was a coach, you'd get auto-benched. And I would call a timeout, and I'd take you out for taking long jumpers. And if I ran out of timeouts, I'd call another one, take a technical, and be like, I know I'm out of timeouts, and I'm willing to take this tee, but I need to send a message to my team that they are not going to play for me if they're going to shoot long twos. Those are awful shots. Make it a three or get to the rim. Okay, Oregon State. How do they outperform their median? Force those jump shots. Seriously, this isn't that hard. I can't understand it. All right, so their risks are, I think they are running hot on D, but again, they are doing what you would want as a coach. So whatever. You will see Dejan Jarreau on Ethan Thompson. Thompson's a great guard. We saw what Jarreau did to a shooter. Thompson's more of a penetrator, so maybe we can get some foul trouble on Jarreau. But overall, that's no bueno if you are a Beaver. But overall, median projection, 5.6. Should be a sloggy game, maybe the 62 possession range. Some things to note for underbettors, because unders have been hot. Both these teams are susceptible to fouls, which is not good for unders. So just something to note. I don't know if I'll take the over. I don't know if I'll take the under with a low possession game. Likely under, but there is risk with fouls. So Game number 2, Vegas has Baylor at -8. Patty's median projection was Baylor minus 6.8. Similar story to the first game. Not a lot of value, but would lean the underdog again. How can Baylor outperform the 6.8 and cover the 8 or win by double digits? Get up early. Arkansas has fallen behind in every game in the tournament and have faced the quality of opponent that will let you back in. If you could get up early against Arkansas, I think you could put them out of their misery. So I'll probably bet this game, but very interested in live betting and seeing how the first few minutes go as well. This would be my message for all teams moving forward, but forcing jumpers would help Baylor outperform the median. Arkansas took 39 mid-range shots against Oral Roberts, which is egregious. So they'll do it. Make it attractive for them. Got to really, really pack that in. Risk for Baylor is they're just inconsistent right now. When their defense plays well, their offense doesn't. When their offense plays well, their defense looks shaky. I do think the defense is fully back, but now the offense looks a little broken. So Jay Wright zoned them, and they really, really struggled with that. Arkansas will not do that or not do much of that. So we'll see kind of how that goes for that situation. On the Arkansas side, I think you need to take a page out of the Big 12 playbook, and you've got to break the pack line. So Baylor will be packed in, and you've got to penetrate. They're going to just bait you into shooting the jumpers that you plan on doing, which you really got to just penetrate, maybe get some fouls, and then I think you got to keep this game in space if you're Arkansas. It's got to stay up and down, and I think that helps Arkansas's offense. If this game gets slow, that is not good for the Arkansas offense, as I think their risks are all on the offensive side. They are fast Loyola from a profile perspective, an offensive efficiency of around 108, and then a defensive efficiency of 88. And they survived by throwing crap at the rim, rebounding it, and then getting a better shot, where they have to avoid step 1 against Baylor. Game number 3. Don't do this to me, Patty. But Vegas line -9. Patty's got it around 8. So not surprising that the Gonzaga line would be inflated a bit, but USC is running hot right now. So how do we outperform the 8 and cover the 9 if you're Gonzaga? It's been noted by many of Gonzaga faithful that Drew Timme will struggle against a real big. And USC's got them. They've got 2 of them. So I think you have to get the Mobleys in foul trouble. Evan Mobley has not fouled out this year. But if you watch him, he will bite on the shot fakes. And Timmy's a crafty post player. So I see Timme getting Mobley out of position, and we'll see what happens. But overall, Timme has traditionally not performed well against bigs. Risk for Gonzaga, I'm putting none here. And here's why. I don't think Gonzaga's carrying the risk. They have the lowest standard deviation of any of the teams that I've modeled in this tournament, meaning they are so consistent with what you would expect from an offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency. They're just very, very consistent. If something happens, it would be because of an outlier on the other side. Obviously, that would affect Gonzaga's own, numbers as well. But it's going to take someone shooting the lights out, which is possible. But it's just, I don't know. That's where I'm at with Gonzaga. So this game I probably stay away from, but this number is going to grow. I bet it settles at 10. Would be my guess. Reason being, I think you have this double-digit mindset where people will take Gonzaga as long as it's single digits, and it's just that mindset of like, well, I mean, they'll win by double digits, right? So that's why I think it settles at 10. SC neutralized Timmy. Again, this is not a great matchup for Timmy, but as you saw, Gonzaga's fifth best player could score 20 points. Gonzaga's fourth best player could have a triple-double. There is just a lot of firepower on that team. Risk for SC is they are running hot, but to just say a team's running hot and not give them any credit, I think, is a mistake. So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at. Game number 4. Hello, friends. I don't think Michigan's very good. I'll keep betting against them. And I would do that without a model. I hate Michigan. I've always hated Michigan. But I make decisions based on data. And my model hates Michigan too. But God, I hate Michigan. They're just Michigan. Oh, I think back to all these Michigan guys I've hated. Brezdakis, however you say his name, Mitch McGarry, the king of the turds. Duncan Robinson, with his stupid hair. Mo Wagner, don't call me Wagner. Just, God, I hate these guys. All right, back to the show. Here we go. UCLA by a half point. I don't make these decisions. The data makes these decisions. And what I'm using is 120 offensive efficiency for UCLA and a defensive efficiency just under 94. On the Michigan side, 116 and 91. So if you're wondering, like, why do you have UCLA favorite? There it is, 120 and 94, 116 and 91, roughly. You know, I've got some decimals in there. Okay, so there you have it. Michigan's favored by 7.5. There's not a way this line could move that I'm not on UCLA. There are risks. So let's talk Michigan first. They could outperform their median by getting to the rim. We talked about how they were able to get to the rim against a very good Florida State defense. Didn't see it coming. And then the officials really aided and embedded that thing. Michigan's risks, they're a good offensive team, but they're not in the class of a lot of teams that we see at this stage of the game. So if you think about who's above 120 in offensive efficiency for my model, Houston is, Gonzaga is, USC's close, Baylor is, Oregon State's close, and Michigan's just kind of middling there. So that's just some risk there. Is if they weren't able to get to the rim, I don't think they are a great offensive team, but I keep losing money on them. Here we go. UCLA, got to protect the rim. You must keep them away from the rim. Force them to do something other than shoot free throws and dunk. Just a thought if you want to win this game. The risk for UCLA is they are not going to get anything inside. And UCLA is fine with that, but back to the jumper discussion. UCLA likes their jumpers just like Houston likes their jumpers. The deal is both teams are pretty skilled at that. You know, they fall in love with the jumpers, but they make them. And same with UCLA. Overall, this game should be a lower possession game. Neither team shoots a lot of threes. The threes they do shoot pretty accurate with. Good shooting teams. They're just not a high-volume three-point team. So overall, I think pace wins out to keep this game close, and we ride on with UCLA. So if you're scoring at home, this was 4 dogs. And some of that is just with how this ended up. Meaning, you have these 1 and 2 seeds that are playing hot teams. I think the lines were inflated a little bit, especially with the pace of some of these games that I'd project. But we have seen this before. The cream rises to the top. I told you earlier, if you took the flip side and said, just give me all the favorites, I'll lay the points. It doesn't look crazy. So overall, I will be playing UCLA at pretty much any number, sprinkle some money line. I will likely see how Baylor Arkansas starts, maybe a small Arkansas bet at the beginning of that game, but probably more of a live betting situation for me. I think I will take Oregon State against Houston, given the information there and the pace of that game. And then I just don't think I can bet against Gonzaga. So I would hope for a hot SC start, some live bets on Gonzaga, or bet the first half like always. So that's kind of where I'm at. The data likes the underdogs, and I will accept that in some places. So overall, don't bet more than you're willing to lose, and bet on teams you like. Like if I bet on Michigan and then they cost me money, oh man, like I can't handle that. So good luck in the Elite Eight. We'll see you for the Final Four show where we will indicate who's going to cut down the nets. Thanks for stopping by.